Welcome to another edition of Working with Gen Z. Friends, today we're going to talk about a topic that perhaps being talked very widely on social media platforms like LinkedIn, HR rooms, boardrooms, campuses. And that is the fact that one of the most educated generations of our time, one of the most tech savvy generations of our time, Gen Z, is somehow finding a hard time landing a job. And what is going on there? Is it the marketplace? Is it the skill set? Is it the expectation? So we're going to try and peel over to find out that okay, what is it the gap that's kind of causing this? And what we're going to also explore as part of the conversation is that which is often undermined is the ability to communicate and the whole concept of networking that is so essential, perhaps, which leads up to the question that, okay, do we may have the skills, are we using the right approach to get the job? And to help me with that is just the expert. And I'm very happy that we're able to get him this morning. And I'm delighted to welcome Michael Forum. Michael, good morning and welcome.
Morning. I'm so happy to be here and share hopefully what I know. But I'm very grateful of being here.
Lovely, Michael. So before we get started, as always, we welcome our guests and want to kind of get to know a little bit about what you do. You have a very stellar background, a very illustrious career. So tell us, tell our audience, a little bit about your backstory, and then we'll dive into the questions.
Well, really, I started about 100 years ago. I started in the military. I was a young sergeant, and I had to tell people who were older than I was, who was less in rank than I was, what to do. So that started my whole networking career, and I owned businesses, brick and mortar businesses. I went corporate. I did everything, but I realized that I was just doing all of this. I should be doing this for myself. I was the face of all the companies. So about 3 years ago, I went out on my own and I teach, educate, or just help the people network. And for business, for personal, it doesn't matter. Business is the base of all, I'm sorry, networking is the base of all business. And until you understand that, until you grasp that, you're going to have a hard time. So I go around and I go across the country. And regarding Gen Z, I go to high schools and I go to colleges and I explain hopefully everything that we are about to talk about now, but I coach students to get ahead.
Fantastic. No, lovely to hear. And I'm very curious because I think as we spoke beforehand, Michael, I have a son who is about to enter a job market, a nephew as well, and both of them, they're very confident, hardworking, but again, they have their own sort of lens of, what is happening with them in the market and all that. So we'll dive in, but let's build the story first. I think, and we'll get to the whole kind of concept of understanding networking in its simplest form, and then how do we do that for someone who's young entering into the marketplace? I know that this is a topic that I've mentioned to very senior executives as well, but let's park that for a moment. I want to spend a little bit of time first, just as you interact with so many people across different levels and also Gen Z's, what is happening fundamentally when you think about the job market is and what is different in your view for that generation, let's say compared to maybe a prior generation, and then if you can share some thoughts.
Well, you hit the nail right on the head, right? Because the Gen Z, the younger generation, it's a mindset shift. Because when we were younger, your first thought, I've worked since I was 14 years old, and I worked hard. And no matter what it was, I had 2 jobs, didn't make it to went to school. It did make a difference. I needed to work in order for me to get ahead. Yet I find that the Gen Z kids, and I use that term loosely because, a lot of them get very offended, like, "No, no, 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 you don't understand. I wanna work." But do they really? Because they want to work very little to get paid a lot and have all the freedom to go throughout the day. And like most people that I speak with, that I talk to, They feel comfortable working 3 or 4 hours a day and calling it quits. And I'm like, "Well, that kinda different from the way that I grew up, because when I was trying to get ahead, I worked 16 hours a day." And so and I didn't expect anything until I worked for it. And that was the to make to everybody that I speak to. You're not just going to be given this opportunity, you have to earn it.
No, absolutely. And yeah, I'm sure there are people who are listening to us thinking that, okay, how are you generalizing? And I think it is, there are always stories, and it's very contextual. We had very recently, and I've shared this in some of the prior episodes here, Michael, that we had a gentleman who's was highly regarded in the information technology industry, and he once mentioned that, listen, we are a rising country, a rising economy, and it's absolutely normal to work 70 hours. And it got such a backlash with a lot of people saying, hey, you can't prescribe this and you don't this. And but his point was, I think, taken out of context simply because he mentioned that, look, the younger generation does really need to really build that character, if you will. I mean, and nothing will come easy, right? If you wish to become the next Elon Musk or whoever, right? It's so I think there's a good point. So I think we'll take that. I think in the right spirit there. But let me ask, what are you seeing, Michael? Are you just sensing that this generation is not job ready? I mean, with also AI, do we sense that are the card stacks against them?
Well, you know what? The cards should not be stacked against them, but they may feel that way because when they go into for a job interview, let's say, and they're speaking with the person who's interviewing them, and they realize that they know a lot more than what the person interviewing them, because they have the phone, they have everything else. But what they're missing is that that person is hiring them, is hiring the people. So you can think that you're better than somebody else all you want, but the fact of the matter is you have to earn it, and you have to put your time in. Now, I've seen many surveys, and the last survey was with 1,000 employers, 1,000 employers. And the majority of them, A, would not hire a Gen Z person, would not, because now once if they do hire them, the Gen Z person usually quits within 3 months because it's too much time. They need their space. They need, all this, they need to be touched like eggshells. And, when you're an employer, you don't want that. You want somebody to be an advocate for your company, to be the face of your company, and to work hard for you. Now, if you work hard for somebody, you will get paid for working hard, but you're not going to be paid $1 million when you should be getting paid $100. So they have to kind of get that thought out of their mindset. So, but it all goes back to the same thing. How do they prepare for this job interview? What are they doing? This, well, I've heard it so often. Like, well, I'm not in business. I can't network. What do you mean? I said, well, do you go to the grocery store? Do you go to a department store? Do you just walk the streets? What, do you talk with your friends? All of this is networking. You can learn network by going to a department store. Turn around, talk to the person behind you, talk to the person in front of you, talk to the cashier behind the register. You can talk, and you're learning. You're learning. You go to the grocery store, you talk with your friends. You have to learn how to speak. You learn how to be patient. If somebody is talking, don't talk. Don't try to talk over them. Wait for the conversation to come around to you and then say something. But be patient. You have to consider yourself, if you want to consider yourself better than the other people, fine. But but act like it. Be humble.
Yeah, what a good advice. I really like the last bit, just being humble. And of course, you talked about the ways to kind of go and start a conversation. So I want to kind of double click that, Michael, in some detail. But let me ask you before we get to that. In your view, are you sensing that the Gen Zs largely doing something wrong in their approach by maybe applying online? Do you sense that their expectations of salaries are going out of line? Do you sense that maybe the social media advantage, the so-called advantage that they have, is that they're not utilizing it properly? So let's understand that, and then we'll maybe kind of shift into how do we think about networking as a tool to get to do some of these things better?
Sure. There are so many applications out there where you can apply for jobs, right? But you can't just blanket your resume and who you are to everybody because every company is different. So if you just blanket your resume out there, you're not going to get anything, right? But if you say that cover sheet becomes very important. So you change that cover sheet for every job opportunity. Now, you can go on to ZipRecruiter, go on to LinkedIn, you can do all of that. And those salaries are there for a reason. You say, well, this is only paying $21 an hour and I'm worth 35 or $40 an hour. And in reality, no, you're not, right? You're just starting out. You should be making $15 an hour and work your way up. And you say, "No, I'm better than that." Well, you're not better than that because there's somebody coming in right after you who's hungry, who is more hungry than you are, who will take the job. And once you sit down with that interview person, it's up to them to say, "How will this person fit into my company?" If you come across like you're gonna be a problem, you're not gonna get it. If you're not gonna come across as hungry as you think you are, or as you should be, you're not gonna get it. But using these online jobs, that's fine. That's fine. But you have to change every resume and cover letter, each available job. And listen, a lot of jobs, they're posting jobs with the salaries when they have no intention of hiring somebody outside the company because they have to do that. So you do that and you really kind of it's kind of like a practice. See what you do, see what you are. Put some resumes out there and actually see what it is. Have somebody have a company look at your resume and make it written properly because I see about 50 resumes a month. And I can tell you that because there's grammatical errors, punctuation errors, about what they the previous employment. So there's a lot of things that go into it, but all of this comes up to why you're not getting hired.
Yeah. No, it's a good point. I think, yeah, if you're really worth what you think you are, obviously, when you take on a job, you can prove yourself, and a higher salary will certainly follow. And I think very often when we ride a wave of economy which is doing well, I think we're somehow misled that we're entitled to this kind of money. And I think, and there's a very important message there, Michael. I just feel that certainly when you're starting out your career, it's important to have that. There's nothing wrong in asking for higher salary. I think we all want more for what we think we can get. But it's a good point. Now let us go to the kind of the core of what we want to talk today, which is that how do we help them to think about these basics, the skill of networking. Now, at one level, everybody gets what it is, but I want you to help us to break it down from the Gen Z perspective, kind of the pre, the during, and the post, if you will, to talk about, okay, in first of all, what it is, And then also just think about that. Okay, what are some concrete ways in which we can do that, right? So does that mean that I randomly go and like talk to people, or do I go to job fairs? Do I go to networking events? Do I go to like chambers of commerce and things like that? So maybe you can help us to kind of walk to that kind of before, during, and then after.
Absolutely. And really what I said in the beginning was that it's a mindset shift, right? Because you have to change the way you think before you go out to the job. Now, before you go out for the job, you have to prepare for that job. You have to get your resume together. You have to do a little investigative work about what the company truly is and what the feeling is of that, of the office. If it's an office that everybody dresses in business casual, or once in a while they put a tie on or a skirt or dress, and you'd like, well, I don't want to out of my clothes. I don't want to, dress any. I want to dress in my loafers and something else. Well, that position probably isn't right for you. So now I say this with a tongue in cheek, right? Because most kids today, they need somebody to kind of put them on the right path, on the straight and narrow. I mean, I coach, but take anybody, right? Somebody who is in the position. So when LinkedIn is a great business platform, and if you're interested in going to this business and asking for a job, then look into the business through LinkedIn. Look at some of the people in there, and really, some of the managers or supervisors or something else, they're going to be in there. Send them a link. Send them, say, "Hey, how you doing? I'm Michael. I'm very interested in your company, and you're doing so well. Would you have 15 minutes for me?" I'm telling you right now that they would love to call. They would love to talk with you. If you said, "I would love to take you out for a cup of coffee or something, just I'd like to get some information," they would love to speak with you. But all of this would be getting information for you and get you better suited for that job, right? So then you're doing everything you can to get that job. Once you get once you apply, once you get that interview, that's such a major step. But you have to think about where you are and what you're doing. You have to dress for the interview. If you don't dress for the interview, you lost. I don't care what type of job it is, right? You lost. My rule of thumb is that if you're going for a construction, something in construction, and they're in jeans and a t-shirt, well, fine, you wear jeans and a button-down shirt. You always go one level above where they are. If, but excuse me, if they are in business casual or just slacks and a shirt, you wear slacks, a shirt, and a sports jacket. If they wear a slack shirt and sports jacket, then you put a tie on. And for the girls, it's a little bit easier because when they dress nice, it's almost like they're already in business casual. But stay away from the jeans. I don't care how nice or how expensive the jeans are, you stay away from the jeans. So that's looking the part. When you get into the interview, you're going to be interviewed by somebody who is a part of the company. Usually, nowadays it's slightly different, but you are being interviewed and they're judging your reaction to everything, right? You have to go there with a series of questions like, what does a company feel like? What does success mean for me? How long would it take me to be promoted? What do I have to do from day one? Do I have to come in 5 days a week, or is 3 days fine? You have to ask all these questions. You can't just assume, well, this is a remote job or I have to come to the office once a week, because quite honestly, that's why you're not being hired. If you go in with the mindset that you want to only work 3 days out of five, or come into the office 3 days out of five, then you have to work at least 3 to 6 months Show them your worth. Show them you are worth staying home for 2 days. Because without that, nothing. And then, of course, afterward, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I just meant to ask here, Michael. I think you have I think that makes a lot of good sense. But I do want to interject to just maybe ask a very more practical question, which could be kind of the devil's advocate to what you just said, which is to say that yeah, I am happy to go on LinkedIn, for example, and like just reach out to that potential employer or the hiring manager or a business manager. But what would you say if someone says that, look, like these days, everybody is seems to be drowned with so much. Okay. And I just say this sort of more, and I think we have more technology in our life. And so perhaps we're on devices and we're on platforms and we're on everything else that we should be or shouldn't be on. But we're there. And the point is that sometimes maybe, and I say this because I know my son experienced this, in fact, like when he attended a networking event and he reached out to 20 people, and they were all very excited at the event. But post the event, like people just got busy. And so could someone argue to say that, look, this is quite good advice, but how do you deal with the fact that the person across is not responding back to you, or is it a sign of rejection, or even the sign of exhaustion of doing this?
I'll tell you, same as a business, same as a person in business, the follow up is so much more important than actually meeting the person. If you don't follow up correctly, then you might as well not even have met the person. So let's say you went to a networking event and you made 20 contacts. So the first thing you would do is when you went home, you would send them an email. Hey, thank you for your time. I had a great time spending time with you. That's wonderful. All the best, Michael. I just send them that thank you. The next day, take a handwritten thank you note, handwritten, right out. Same thing. Hey, Michael, this is Michael. I met you at such and such date at such and such an event. We spoke about XYZ. I hope to get in touch with you soon, Michael. You didn't put a time for business. You didn't put business. It was just a thank you note that they would physically get. And that changes things completely because nobody does that anymore. Right. But in 3 or 4 days, give that a chance to get to them. You email them one more time. Hey, Michael, this is Michael. I met you on such and such date at such and such an event. We spoke about XYZ. Notice I start everything out with those three things because what does that do? That will remind that person, oh, that's really him. And he's really interested in speaking with me. Hey, listen, I just saw my calendar and I saw that I'm free Tuesday and Wednesday. Would one of those days be good for you, Michael? In 3 days, if they still haven't answered you, which I'd be shocked because either it's yes or no, but either way, you get a response. You know right away, yes or no. Okay. So, hey, Michael, this is Michael. I met you on such and such date at such an event. We spoke about XYZ. I told you Tuesday and Wednesday were free, were okay, but Tuesday's kind of full. How's Wednesday? 3 more days pass. Now, let me backtrack. When you send an email to corporations, you have a 2% chance of getting a response. Two. And you have to you have to make contact with a person between 8 and 15 times before you could actually make a sale or a contract. Think about that. So anyway, so you go back and you write out another email. Hey, Michael, this on such date at such an event, we spoke about XYZ. Tuesday and Wednesday happened to be. I told you what they were free. They're kind of full. How's the date for you. Just leave it open like that. If they don't answer you by then, they usually have no interest in answering you. So then you put them into a CRM. I'm thinking more of a business side now, and you do what's called a drip campaign. I'll go into that afterwards. But this, by staying on top of this, you saw that, or the person saw that you were very interested in speaking with him. And let's say you go to LinkedIn and you send something. I deal with this every day. One of my clients every day. When you send something, you don't send something just expecting something back. You send something, you create a value. You say something valuable. If it's a roofer you're trying to get in touch with and they do metal roofing, then all of a sudden you find an article online about metal roofing versus asphalt. You send them that and say, "Hey, I thought of you. Would you be interested?" Whatever. You're not selling anything. You're just giving him value. Nobody, all the different links on LinkedIn. The first thing you do is connect. That's great. That's connected. Once they accept, then you send them something. You send a little email that you put together. Hey, thanks for connecting. I really enjoy what you do for the so and so company. I really look forward to talking with you. And send it. About 2 days later, because depends on the person, but 2 days later, if they haven't answered you, then send them another link. Say, "Hey, this is Michael. I really want to know about XYZ company. Would you have 15 minutes?" Yeah. Nobody does that. Nobody does this. So this is just putting you ahead of everybody else and really make you shine.
Yeah. No, so very good points. I think just the fact that you need to be added. I really like the handwritten note. Again, I think many many of our listeners or the Gen Z community are thinking, "Oh my gosh, what is it? What?" But I do agree with you. I think it's all about keeping the lead warm and touch points. And I'm sure, like you, Michael, I've spent many years in sales, and I know it's just like there are ways in which we want to make sure we have a reason to get back, not necessarily to sell, as you say. It's to keep the conversation going. Maybe just have a gentle touch from the outside to say, "Hey, that article was really good, and I saw and thought about you." So I think these are some excellent points. I like it. You do it for a few times, and at some point, either if they're not interested, they'll let you know, or you will get a response back. Now, let me ask you one other thing, just Michael, before we shift into things like drip campaign and so on. But what, in your experience, normally comes in the way of good networking? Is it lack of effort? Is it just the ability not to understand and doing an incorrect approach, or is it the lack of resilience? What is it? I mean, what have you seen like the people who are good at networking do versus for the others who feel that, look, hey, this is what's coming in my way?
I went to the school of hard knocks, right? I went to the school of I did everything wrong before I did it correct. So I know what I did and it got zero results. I know what I do now and I get great results. So the first thing is that if you're interested in network, you're doing it wrong first. Okay. When you walk into a chamber of commerce, now, I don't think a student would have a problem walking into a chamber of commerce meeting and saying, "Look, I'm a student. I'm graduating in June. I just want to know about the job opportunities out there." You're getting yourself known, right? You're getting yourself out there. But you can't walk in incorrectly. And what I mean by that is you don't walk in spouting stuff right away. You have to walk in and you have to listen. You walk into a conversation. Now, usually the adults in the room are having a conversation. And here you are, a college student. You're going to walk up to them and you're not going to say a word. In the Chamber of Commerce, one of the people should turn around to you and say, "Hey, how are What's your name? What are you doing? What, tell me about yourself. Give them the opportunity to ask you. And then you have your 30-second elevator pitch, which I don't believe in. So I'm just putting that out there. Um, but you have to, in a very quick way, explain what you did, what you're doing, what you're looking for. It's very simple. And that learning curve of how to speak with people and how to enunciate what you want to do is half of the problem, right? Because the students that I run into, it's, well, let me tell you all about myself.
Mhm.
When you should be saying, what can I do for you?
Mm.
When you go to a networking event, you go in with what's called a servant's heart. You say, what can I do for somebody else? And then that will come back around to me. But what can I do? And my line after because I do this very same thing when I go to networking events or things like that. I say, you know what? I like you. I like what you do for a living. I like how you do it. How can I make you more successful? How can I be a good referral source for you? And if I did my job correctly, they'll say, Michael, I don't even know what the heck you do yet. Perfect. And so that shows me that I'm giving. And that is where there's a bold line between the Gen Z and the networking,
Mm.
because the Gen Z isn't about giving, it's about receiving. And that's why I said it's a mindset shift. They have to change the way they think. And what can they do? Because once they see what you can do for somebody else, they'll be more apt to do things for you.
Yeah. No, what a brilliant, I think it's a it's a again, I go back to say it's a very you're not putting anybody on the defensive. Very it's a totally non-salesy, as you're out there to kind of really authentically hope, trying to get to know them and make it for them. It's about them, and then that should automatically bring you into the conversation. So and I think we often just, when we start talking about us ourselves, and everybody's selling each other, then I think we may have lost the plot there. So that's an excellent point there. So let's shift now. Michael, you're in the organization, obviously, and you're growing. Tell us how networking helps in the job place, right? You're starting to work. You got a boss, you got peers. What kind of things should you be doing?
Okay, so first thing you have to remember is that you're in a giant looking glass, right? The first 3 months, even if they don't have a probationary period, you have to consider the first 3 months is your probationary period because everybody is looking at you, right? So you're going to do your job. That's expected, right? But what it's not, what's it's how you fit in. It's the way you're looking at yourself and others. So let's start with the peers, right? So you're looking at your peers, going to follow through with almost the same thing what you're doing in a networking meeting I'll say it at the water cooler. That doesn't really happen anymore, but at the water cooler, you're up with 3 or 4 people. They took 5 minutes out, and what's the first thing you do when you walk up to that group of people? You don't talk. You don't say a word. You listen. You listen for what's going on. Are they talking about somebody's dog? Are they talking about somebody's house? Did they just buy a home? Did they just have a baby? Did they see what's about? And then talk, give to that conversation not something that you wanted to talk about. If they're talking about somebody's home and you just moved to your house or they know somebody else, add something to the conversation, right? Because you have to be liked before you can go any further. If you're not liked within a company, you're not going to go very far. right? So if you're the type of person that is bullyish and you walk in and you start to bully the conversation or bully the people, you're not going to last very long, right? Because they're going to say, well, you know what? You really don't fit in, right? So, but let's do that. Okay. Let's say that you go out and you're getting along with everybody. You have to figure out when is a work time and when is a play time.
Mm.
I used to tell my people, listen, when we work hard. When we play just as hard, but we work hard first, right? So you have to show that your work that you have for that day, if you have 6 hours to do it in 4, right? You have to at least do it better. If somebody's expecting to give you 10 things, then you give them 12. You know, always over deliver. Okay, nothing about budgets or anything. So always over deliver. Always give them more than what is expected. And you're saying this is an awful lot of work for me, right? Because and that's what it is. You're building because in networking, in business, same mantra. They have to know you, like you, and trust you before they'll ever do business with you. Know you, yes, you're a great person. Like you, well, that narrows the scope down a little bit, but trust you, that's the whole thing. So once you gain that level of trust, then certain things open up. So now let's take it one step further and you're going to talk to a manager or a supervisor, right? You've got to show them that you are working this hard, that you are friendly with those people, but you're showing them because there's a lot of times when you'll be tested when halfway through the day, the manager or supervisor will say, "Oh, do you have a minute?" Yeah, because some football game was on or something like that. So yeah, I do, but I just have to finish this first. That will send signals. So, and that's for the manager or supervisor. So you get your work done, but then you have their boss. And when their boss comes in, you'll see everybody's like a shotgun shell all over the place, like, quickly doing work, right? But you don't have to quickly do work because you're already doing it. And you don't have to go up and say, see, look what I did. They will notice because whatever you have to do has to go up through them. So whatever you do, so you just, it's working hard, keeping your nose to the grindstone, play hard. You can play with them. Listen, I was always on the softball teams, the baseball teams, the, tag football teams. I was always playing with everybody. But my work always came first. And when somebody tried to drag me out of it, I'm like, not really. I have to finish this.
So I really like Michael. I mean, I think you touched upon some excellent points. The first of which I like that you want to be very gentle to kind of get yourself accepted in the crowd, and that is such a good advice. I feel like sometimes you don't realize, and if you tend to over dominate a conversation, it can be a turn off, or it can almost be like you're not, you have to be you have to be mindful of the existing culture, or the subculture that exists in the company, and you know how that goes, because when you're new, you're making the mark, you got to be also be careful, right? I think if you try to be overtly sort of aggressive, then that could kind of almost boomerang. And I really like all the other advice. I look, over deliver, the work comes first, and I think these are just such good sort of universal tips, I would say. Michael, let's talk about a couple more things as just a way to kind of bring our conversation down, which is, in your experience, I mean, like you've you do such extensive work. What do you see? Can you think of an example of either of a leader or a company in which there is high emphasis on networking and they push it? Or maybe can you think of someone personally where, hey, the networking ability of that particular person in your career, whether it's in an organization or in your consulting work, that seemed to have elevated them so well, professionally. So, I mean, is that someone who can you can kind of think about, or like just in more general, like you know, anyone else
There's
in mind?
there there are plenty. Okay, I have a lot of those instances. Uh, I said before, networking is the base of all business. Once you learn how to network, it'll propel you forward. If you don't network properly, it will not only keep you down, but you won't make money. If you're on a commission basis, you won't make money. If you're on a salary plus commission basis, you'll make your salary, and minor uh, commission. Networking is so important. One of my students made a career change, and he was lost. He got up part of the chamber because chamber is a good place to network. He got up and he was fumbling, he was talking and everything. And I just showed him, and he became a client of mine. And I showed him where to stand, how to talk, what to say, what not to say, right? Because he had all these different things that he can do. I said, don't tell everybody that. Okay. Pick two. You have 45 seconds. What do you have to do? So I told him, A, stand up and go to the side of the side wall. Okay. Why did I do that? So that his back was not to anybody, right? Because otherwise he'd sitting there and he was turning around trying to talk to everybody. Don't do that. Go to a wall, right? And say who you are and give some sort of a humorous joke or something like 5 seconds. And that usually gets everybody's attention, gives a little chuckle, and then you have a good 30 seconds to kind of tell them what you do. And then what you do is I always this is a thing that I do. I told you I don't like the 30-second elevator speech, but I that elevator pitch, I have you figure one out. And then I said, okay, now let's break it down to 10 seconds. They go, I just broke it down to 30 seconds. I can't break it down to 10. Yes, you can. 10 seconds. So that they do. They break it down to 10 seconds. I said, okay, now forget it. Forget about it. Okay. Now you have 30 seconds. Tell me what you do. And he told me, and it was good. I said, that's what you tell them. So all of a sudden, he went from not knowing how to network to knowing how to network. And it increased when I do a workshop for a company and I go in and I explain to them how to network. I say, listen, I can't guarantee it. I will almost guarantee it that you will increase your ROI, your return on investment next month within 30 days. And it is because I have a secret sauce for follow up. I kind of gave it to you. But if you follow up correctly, you will do incredible things. So this one student, I'm not going to give you his name in case he hears this. Um, but he did such a great job just within a month, and he did such a great job, turned completely over, and I have other people saying, "Wow, you did a great job with him. He's like a completely different person." He's really the same person, but the way that he speaks and what he wants to say is completely different.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think again, it's the messaging, how you deliver it, what to say, what not to say. I really like the fact that you put equal emphasis on, not about telling the big long story, but what matters, and cut out, rather than telling 10 points, maybe 2 points, but make it sharp, make it focused. So Michael, let's, as a way to kind of wrap up, what would you say are, if you had to give some advice, like just some do's and don'ts of networking to the young Gen Zs who are in the workplace, entering the workplace, right? Two things that they should do, and this is across. So our target pool is people who are in the workplace, who are about to enter the workplace. So two things to do for networking, and two things not to do, and keeping in mind the skill of networking.
Okay, that first one is real easy, right? First one is join a chamber of commerce, wherever you are, wherever your business is. because that meets once a week for about two hours. And you have to learn with networking, consistency is the number one thing. You have to gain that level of trust. Once you gain that level of trust, you're fine. But you're not going to do it if you show up and it don't show up again for another 2 months and it don't show up again for another 2 months. So they're not going to believe you. They're not going to trust you. And with your when you're already there, and I would pick another networking group, by the way. I would do the networking twice a week, right? And it will help you. Um, Also learn when to talk and when not to talk, right? So wait for that conversation to come around to you. Speak when about the subject, not a subject that you want to bring in. Listen, if there's a lull in the conversation and you can bring in the point that you want to bring it in. Absolutely. There's no saying why you can't bring that in. So you can do that slowly, but always remember that know you, like you, trust you, they'll do business with you. Without the level of trust, they won't do business. And two things what not to do, very simple. Don't walk into a conversation and start talking. Don't start talking, right? Wh- That's the first part. The second part is when somebody else is talking, listen, respect. Respect goes such a long way. Let them talk. Don't talk over them. Let them finish talking. And when they finish talking, repeat back something that they said so they knew that you understood and that you were listening, and then respond. This goes such a long way. And if you are just entering the business field, network. Network because listen, I here in Georgia, and Johns Creek, I created my own networking group, and it could go up to like 30 businesses large. And people want to come back because they feel secure, they feel listened to, they learned something. You can learn something from anybody that you're talking to, but just you have to be open to it.
Super. No, I think what good advice. Consistency, building the trust, listening, the whole factor of humility, and not speaking when others do that. I think these are things. Perhaps, Michael, we see people with 15, 20, 30 years of experience sometimes often don't practice it. But I think our Gen Zs can kind of appreciate this or put this into play early in their careers. It'll go a long way. So, Michael, this was one fabulous conversation. Thank you. Where can people find you, look you up? What are some places, and maybe also, things that you do? So, so just tell us, how to kind of get a hold of you.
Well, I'm on every social platforms. I'm all over, but the best way to get hold of me, go to my website, michaelaforeman.com. On there, you'll see like the 90 podcasts that I was on. I have 8 digital courses from the interview questions to how to network. If you're in real estate, I have a lot of the digital courses, and you can learn so much by these digital courses. But at the very bottom of my website, you there's a contact form. Put your name, number, something you want to talk about, and just fill it in. I will answer you back within 24 hours and let's talk. No harm in talking.
There you have it, Michael. Thank you very much for sharing. All good tips, very practical, very, very usable, and very doable. I think that's the thing. It's not something that's not. It's very onerous. It's simple, but it's about consistency, practice. So really like all the tips that you've given. Thank you once again, Michael, and I hope our travels can bring you to Asia. And, when I'm back in the US at some point, maybe we can meet up in person.
Absolutely. I look forward to that.
Okay. Thank you, Michael, and take care and have a good week.